Tonight, we descend into a theory as old as myth, yet as persistent as shadow, that our Earth is not solid, but hollow, that within its vast dark shell, ancient civilizations dwell, and that somewhere beneath our feet, the legendary city of Agartha waits in silence. The idea of a hollow Earth is easy to dismiss at first glance. It contradicts centuries of geology, ignores the mountains of data compiled by seismologists, and defies what most consider basic planetary science. But that is not the whole story. Because within the folds of history, buried under war, religion, exploration, and state secrecy, are fragments. Fragments of maps with impossible details, diaries from lost Arctic expeditions, testimonies from pilots, mystics, and military officers, each whispering of caverns that reach to the core, of tunnels that stretch for hundreds of miles, and of inner worlds lit by artificial suns. The term Agartha first emerges in the West through the writings of 19th century esoteric thinkers like Alexandre Saint-Yves-d'Alvedre, who claimed to have received telepathic contact from hidden masters deep within the earth. But the myth predates him by centuries, drawing from Buddhist cosmology, Hindu lore, and Tibetan legends of Shambhala, a kingdom said to exist below the Himalayas, untouched by war and time. In 1906, a strange volume titled Mission de l'Inde en Europe described Agartha in unsettling detail. It spoke of a subterranean empire governed by wise beings, accessible only to those with spiritual purity. The book was never officially published, yet copies circulated quietly among occult societies and secretive Masonic orders across Europe. During the early 20th century, as exploration fever gripped the Western world, strange reports trickled in. Arctic expeditions returned without their crews. German and Russian scientists wrote of magnetic anomalies near the poles. Hollow Earth theories entered popular discourse, not just among the eccentrics, but among military strategists and global empires. And then came World War II. In the shadows of Nazi ambition, whispers grew darker. It's said that certain factions within the Third Reich took these legends seriously, that they launched expeditions to Antarctica and Tibet in search of ancient tunnels and hidden allies, and that they believed, some fervently, in the idea that humanity had rivals older and deeper than we had ever known. But this is only the surface. To understand where the legend truly begins, we must go back, not to the 1900s, but to the maps of the Renaissance, to the books of forbidden knowledge sealed in Vatican vaults, to the Native American myths of sacred caverns and star people. Because the hollow Earth theory is not a modern invention. It is a thread that weaves through every continent and culture, and if we pull hard enough, it leads not just to Agartha, but to the heart of a question few dare ask. What lies below us? The year is 1538. A man named Gerhard Mercator sits hunched over a parchment in the dim light of his study. Known to history as the father of modern cartography, Mercator is compiling what will become one of the most influential map projections in history. But among his works lies an enigma, a map of the North Pole surrounded by 4 massive rivers flowing inward toward a black mountain at the center of the Earth. The map, known as the Septentrionalium Terrarum, was based not on first-hand observation, but on older, lost documents. Accounts allegedly taken from Norse sailors, ancient monks, and explorers whose names history barely remembers. Mercator annotated it with curious notes. One speaks of a whirlpool so powerful that it pulls the ocean inward. Another describes a tribe of pygmies living in the interior, shielded from the outer world by an impenetrable wall of ice. This was not an isolated incident. In the centuries before satellite imagery and global positioning, cartographers routinely filled blank spaces with speculation, myth, and hearsay. But even among these embellished charts, certain patterns repeat. Maps from the 16th and 17th centuries often show a large landmass at the North Pole, sometimes split into 4 quadrants by massive rivers. These images do not reflect any known reality, but they persist across cultures and languages. Theories arose that the North Pole was a gateway, that it marked an entrance to the hollow Earth. By the 18th century, a new idea had emerged. A mathematician named Leonhard Euler, known for his contributions to physics and calculus, proposed that the Earth might be hollow, containing a central sun and supporting inner life. Though never published formally, the theory gained momentum. In 1818, American war hero John Cleve Symmes Jr. declared before Congress that the Earth was not just hollow, but habitable. He proposed launching an expedition to the poles to prove it. Symmes' theory suggested that vast openings existed at both the North and South poles, openings large enough for ships to pass through. He spent years petitioning the U.S. government to fund an Arctic journey. Though his proposal was ultimately denied, his ideas attracted followers. One of them, Jeremiah N. Reynolds, gave public lectures across the country, arguing that the interior of the Earth was not only real, but occupied. Reynolds eventually joined an expedition to the South Seas in 1829, though it never reached Antarctica. Still, his lectures inspired a generation of thinkers, including Edgar Allan Poe and Jules Verne. The hollow Earth moved from speculative science into fiction, and then, quietly, back into belief. By the dawn of the 20th century, the lines between exploration, science fiction, and occult mysticism had begun to blur. But through it all, the maps remained. Archived in old libraries, buried in forgotten manuscripts, or hidden away in private collections, they spoke of continents that should not exist, entrances that were never found, and tunnels that led to cities beneath the crust. And in time, these maps would catch the attention of another power, one with more resources, darker ambitions, and a vested interest in what might lie beneath the poles. In 1938, under a veil of secrecy, the German Navy dispatched an expedition to Antarctica. Its official purpose was to survey whaling grounds and stake territorial claims. But from the beginning, the voyage was wrapped in symbols, myths, and hidden agendas. The ship Schwabenland carried planes emblazoned with swastikas. It established a base in Queen Maud Land, which the Germans promptly renamed Neuschwabenland. What happened there remains uncertain. Reports conflict. Files went missing after the war, but whispers endured that the mission had little to do with whales and everything to do with what lay beneath the ice. Inside Himmler's SS, occult departments flourished. The Ahnenerbe, a Nazi think tank focused on ancestral heritage, was obsessed with legends of lost civilizations. They scoured Tibet for clues about Aryan origins and underground realms. Recovered documents suggest that high-ranking officials believed in Agartha, and that somewhere below the polar caps, a portal existed. In 1943, as the war turned against Germany, rumors swirled that select members of the regime had retreated, not to Argentina, as popular history claims, but to subterranean sanctuaries. A popular post-war myth alleged that Neuschwabenland became a haven for escaped Nazis, shielded within vast ice caverns warmed by geothermal energy. Some versions claimed they allied with ancient beings, inheritors of advanced technology from forgotten epochs. In 1946, the United States launched Operation High Jump, led by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Officially a training mission, the operation deployed 13 ships, 4,700 men, and heavy equipment to Antarctica. But it ended abruptly. Just weeks after arrival, Byrd was recalled. No official explanation was ever provided. Byrd later gave an interview in Chile that further fueled the mystery. He warned that the United States must prepare to defend itself against aircraft that could fly from pole to pole in a matter of hours. What exactly he meant remains debated. Some believe he encountered something unexpected, perhaps a military installation, perhaps something stranger. Declassified documents from the 1950s show the CIA monitoring hollow Earth theorists. One file references a report of unusual seismic activity near the South Pole, matching the coordinates of Neuschwabenland. Another discusses sightings of disc-shaped aircraft emerging from polar regions. These stories are easy to discard. The lines between fact and legend are blurred by time, misinformation, and Cold War disinformation. Yet, even today, portions of Antarctica remain restricted. Satellite imagery of certain areas is conspicuously absent. And for decades, governments have issued strict no-fly zones over both poles. Whether or not the Nazis found an entrance to the hollow Earth, their obsession with the theory cannot be denied. For them, Agartha was not a fairy tale. It was a strategic objective. And if the Reich truly vanished beneath the ice, then the war may have never ended. February 1947. Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, already a seasoned polar explorer, climbs into the cockpit of his aircraft on the icy expanse of Antarctica. His mission is part of Operation High Jump, an enormous U.S. Navy undertaking shrouded in public declarations of scientific research. But whispers tell another story. What happened during that flight is lost in the fog of classified reports and post-war confusion. But in the years that followed, a peculiar document began circulating in conspiracy circles, a supposed secret diary attributed to Byrd himself. The diary recounts a journey beyond what any map shows. According to the text, Byrd's plane was pulled into a mysterious energy field. The snow and ice below gave way to green valleys, rivers, and strange animals resembling mammoths. He describes being intercepted by aircraft unlike any he had seen, silent, disc-shaped machines that glowed with internal light. Byrd claims he was escorted to an underground city of radiant beauty. There, he was greeted by beings who spoke perfect English, their demeanor calm and grave. They referred to themselves as the Ariani and warned humanity about the path of destruction it had taken, especially after the use of atomic weapons. According to the document, they had allowed Byrd to return to deliver this warning, but upon debriefing, he was silenced by U.S. intelligence. No verified copy of this diary has ever surfaced in military archives. Mainstream historians consider it a hoax. The document contains linguistic oddities and inconsistencies, but the legend persists. Byrd, in his public speeches, made cryptic references. He once warned that the greatest threat to the United States could come from the polar regions. In another instance, he spoke of an unknown potential enemy that can travel from pole to pole with incredible speed. Byrd died in 1957, never clarifying these remarks. Yet his reputation as an explorer, a decorated naval officer, and a man of science lends a strange weight to the tale. And those who believe in the hollow Earth often point to him, not just as a witness, but as the first outsider to glimpse Agartha. In the decades following his death, other pilots would echo similar stories. Reports of anomalies near the poles continued, compasses spinning wildly, sudden temperature shifts, and unexplained radar echoes. Whether the diary was a fabrication or a leak, its impact was undeniable. It helped cement the idea that entrances to an inner Earth were guarded by more than ice and wind, that they were protected by intelligent life, hidden civilizations that chose to remain out of reach. And if Bird was telling the truth, then perhaps the question is no longer whether the hollow Earth exists, but who has been allowed inside. Long before radar, long before planes, stories of hidden realms beneath the Earth surfaced again and again. Cultures separated by oceans and centuries described tunnels beneath mountains, cities buried under sand, and entire civilizations living in the dark. In Turkey, the underground cities of Derinkuyu and Kaymakli stretched downward from multiple levels, complete with ventilation shafts, water wells, and enough space to house thousands. Their true age remains uncertain. Orthodox historians date them to the 8th century BCE, yet older traditions claim they were built to escape something, not war, but cataclysm. From what, they do not say. In the Andes, Inca legends speak of Chincana, a vast underground maze said to link temples and distant cities. Spanish conquistadors were warned never to enter its deepest halls. Some tried and were never seen again. One 17th century account speaks of a treasure hunter entering a tunnel beneath Cusco and emerging weeks later in a different province, mad, starving, and unable to speak. The Hopi people of North America tell of the Ant People, benevolent beings who live underground and once sheltered humanity during a time of global fire. The entrance to their world, they say, is hidden in the Grand Canyon. Curiously, in 1909, a now infamous article from the Arizona Gazette claimed that the Smithsonian had discovered an underground city in the canyon, filled with Egyptian artifacts and sealed off from the public. The Smithsonian denies any knowledge of such a find. Across India and Tibet, ancient texts describe a subterranean realm known as Patala, connected by hidden shafts and guarded by serpentine beings. Buddhist monks speak of Shambhala, a paradise beneath the earth, accessible only to the enlightened. It is often conflated with Agartha, described not just as a city, but as a vast network of underground worlds. Modern attempts to explore these myths have met strange ends. In the 1960s, the U.S. military launched Operation Plowshare, a program that proposed using nuclear explosions to excavate large underground spaces. One project, known as GOME, detonated a warhead in New Mexico. The resulting data was classified, and reports of unexpected findings were never clarified. Some believe these explosions were not tests, but attempts to breach into deeper chambers. In Russia, a borehole on the Kola Peninsula became the deepest man-made hole on Earth. As it reached depths over 12 kilometers, engineers reported strange sounds, unexplained equipment failures, and an increasing unease among the crew. The project was halted abruptly, with no clear explanation. Everywhere the Earth is pierced, something resists. Whether by stone, by chance, or by design, the tunnels refuse to give up their secrets. But the patterns remain. There is always an entrance, always a guardian myth, always the echo of something deeper. And in the minds of those who study Agartha, it is within these tunnels, ancient, sacred, and deliberately hidden, that the truth lies buried. In the heart of Hollow Earth lore lies a central, recurring idea, that Agartha is not merely a hidden city, but a sanctuary, home to beings of immense age and wisdom, known to some as the Ascended Masters. This concept gained traction in the late 19th and early 20th centuries through the writings of theosophists like Helena Blavatsky and later Alice Bailey. They claimed that deep beneath the Himalayas, in a city shielded from the eyes of the world, lived a council of elder beings, some human, others not, who guided humanity's spiritual evolution from afar. These beings were said to possess advanced knowledge, including technologies that far surpassed our own. Not machines in the traditional sense, but mechanisms of light, sound, and thought. Devices that healed, traveled through dimensions, and stored the memories of civilizations long erased from the surface. French mystic Alexander Saint-Yves d'Alvedre was among the first to publicly name Agartha. He described it as a hidden kingdom ruled by a spiritual monarchy, the king of the world, who maintained balance between surface dwellers and those below. His writings claimed that Agartha had once been known to all nations before a great flood buried the entrances and forced its inhabitants into silence. Saint-Yves claimed to have made contact with emissaries from this realm. He described their language as Vatan, a universal tongue that combined music, geometry, and meaning. These emissaries warned him that mankind's obsession with war, industry, and greed would lead to ruin. Only those who embraced peace and inner harmony would be allowed to one day enter Agartha again. Later in the 1930s, another mystic, Nicholas Roerich, led expeditions across Central Asia. He claimed to have seen signs of Shambhala and spoke of a coming global shift when the veil between worlds would thin. Curiously, Roerich carried a stone said to be part of the legendary Chintamani, a relic with supposed connections to both Shambhala and Agartha, and rumored to radiate a guiding energy. These stories intersect with UFO lore as well. Some theorists argue that many of the unidentified craft seen since the mid-20th century do not originate in space, but from beneath the Earth. That the Ariani, described in Admiral Byrd's supposed diary, were not aliens, but ancient terrestrials, remnants of a pre-human civilization that retreated underground during a planetary catastrophe. They are not interested in conquest, these stories suggest, but in observation. They interfere only when nuclear war or mass ecological collapse threatens the planet as a whole. And always they return to Agartha. Skeptics point to the lack of physical evidence, but believers argue that such a civilization would not operate by our rules of detection. Their science would be indistinguishable from magic. Their cities shielded not by camouflage, but by vibration and will. If true, then Agartha is not lost, it is hidden. Not in distance, but in frequency. And the only map to find it lies not in the ground, but in the mind. If a realm such as Agartha exists, sealed beneath mountains, oceans, and polar caps, then why has no scientific expedition ever found it? The question haunts the hollow earth theory, standing like a gatekeeper at its threshold. But the silence of science may not be what it seems. In 1969, the United States launched a little-known initiative under the National Science Foundation called the Crustal Studies Program. Publicly, it aimed to understand plate tectonics and seismic behavior. But private memos revealed that one objective involved drilling into a known anomaly beneath the Brooks Range in Alaska. The operation was quietly halted. Equipment failed. Team members reported auditory hallucinations and erratic behavior. The data? Classified. Elsewhere, data discrepancies remain unexplained. Seismologists have long relied on the behavior of shock waves traveling through the Earth's layers to map its interior. And yet, in regions like the Arctic and Central Asia, those waves behave inconsistently, bending, echoing, or disappearing. Some claim this could indicate hollow pockets or unusual densities. Officially, these are dismissed as statistical noise. In the late 1990s, NASA satellites captured faint thermal anomalies beneath Greenland's ice sheet, patterns that suggested geothermal activity where none should exist. At first, the findings were shared openly, but subsequent studies were withdrawn, and the thermal images vanished from public access. Geologists who investigate such anomalies often find their careers diverted. Grants are denied. Fieldwork is delayed indefinitely. Some suggest this is simply the bureaucracy of modern science. Others believe it is something more deliberate, a slow erasure of the geological unknown. Then there is the curious case of global censorship. Satellite imagery from Google Earth and similar platforms routinely blurs or obscures parts of the polar regions. While some of this is due to technical limitations, certain zones, especially circular formations near the poles, are patched with generic textures. Independent researchers have noted large blacked-out areas that remain even across multiple platforms. When inquiries are made, officials cite national security. But security from what? Whistleblowers have emerged, though few with credibility. A retired USGS analyst once claimed that magnetic readings from Antarctica matched the properties of a rotating core, not deep within the Earth, but just below the crust. He was never seen in public again. His online posts were deleted within hours. It would not be the first time science bowed to politics. During the Cold War, entire fields of study were co-opted, silenced, or buried under the weight of secrecy. If Agartha were real, it would be among the most classified discoveries in human history, a geopolitical asset unlike any other. Or perhaps the truth is more subtle. Perhaps the evidence is there, scattered in journals, buried in data, waiting to be seen. But we have trained ourselves not to look. Because beneath the Earth is darkness, and science, for all its power, still fears the dark. For those who believe in the hollow Earth, the question is no longer whether Agartha exists, but who controls access to it. Over the past century, various claims have emerged pointing to a global effort spanning governments, intelligence agencies, and scientific institutions to monitor, suppress, and control knowledge of subterranean realms. The alleged structure of this effort is sometimes called the Inner Earth Network. Not an organization in the traditional sense, but a loose alliance of military and academic figures embedded in key institutions. Their purpose? To ensure that information regarding hollow Earth entrances, particularly those near the poles and under tectonic fault lines, remains classified. One document, allegedly leaked in 1983, references an obscure project called Silent Keyhole, a supposed joint U.S.-Soviet operation designed to detect large-scale subterranean movement using satellite sonar arrays. The project was said to have discovered anomalies beneath the Himalayas, the Andes, and under the Arctic ice shelf. Official records of the program do not exist. Another curious piece of evidence. In 1994, a NATO radar survey of the Greenland ice sheet registered a signal reflection nearly 2 miles down, one that bounced back with the speed of metal, not ice. It was logged as a data glitch. The operator who noted it, a Danish technician named Erik Hjelm, disappeared 6 months later while hiking in Iceland. His body was never found. Then there are the so-called deep access facilities. Underground military bases are a known reality, from Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado to Mount Yamantau in Russia. But fringe researchers argue that some of these installations are not built solely for defense, but as monitoring stations placed near known cavern systems. A 2002 Freedom of Information Act request revealed the existence of Subsurface Monitoring Program J21, an unclassified but unexplained budget item linked to the Department of Energy. No mission statement was included. The funding trail vanished in 2003. Former intelligence officer Edward Lansdale, in private notes released posthumously, made a cryptic reference to non-human infrastructure at depth. The context remains unclear. And yet, despite these clues, no public confirmation has ever been made. Researchers vanish into obscurity. Expeditions are cut short. And the media, when it does report on such stories, treats them as novelty, not threat. But behind the silence, a pattern endures. A quiet choreography of obfuscation. Perhaps Agartha is not hidden from view, but hidden by consensus. Those who know do not speak, and those who speak are not believed. If Agartha lies within, then how does one enter it? Across the globe, legends converge on specific sites, places where the veil between surface and depth thins. These are not doorways in the conventional sense, but fractures, anomalies, gaps in the known. In Antarctica, some believe the entrance is beneath the ice shelf near the Weddell Sea, where both Nazi expeditions and Operation High Jump converged. Satellite scans from the 1990s showed massive dome-like structures buried under miles of snow, written off as glacial formations. But those who examined the raw data saw symmetry, pattern, and depth. In the Himalayas, ancient texts refer to guarded tunnels leading beneath the peaks of Mount Kailash. Climbers report strange compass readings, sudden weather shifts, and a profound sense of dread near its base. Tibetan monks refuse to climb the summit, calling it sacred, not because it leads to the heavens, but because it descends. In the Amazon, indigenous tales speak of tunnels under the jungle floor, carved long before the forest itself existed. Explorers have found smooth walls beneath the soil, engraved with symbols not native to the region. Most were quickly sealed off by national governments. Then there is the South Pole. A no-fly zone surrounds it. Satellites rarely provide clear images. In 2017, a flurry of strange visits occurred. High-level religious, political, and scientific figures, Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church, then U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, made unusual trips to Antarctica. Officially, these were diplomatic or spiritual gestures. But the timing, secrecy, and silence afterward left many questions. Not all entrances are physical. Some traditions speak of meditative gates, paths inward, accessed through altered states of consciousness. In these versions, Agartha is reached not by digging, but by tuning. The body stays above, the mind goes below. This idea aligns with reports from those who claim to have seen the inner earth in dreams, visions, or near-death experiences. They describe cities of light, crystal halls, beings of immense calm and clarity. The details differ, but the emotion is the same, a feeling of returning. Perhaps the entrances are both real and symbolic. Perhaps they are everywhere, caves, ruins, forgotten staircases, and nowhere, visible only to those meant to see. Or perhaps they were all sealed long ago, not to protect Agartha from us, but to protect us from what we might find. The earth is not what it seems. It turns, it breathes, and beneath its crust, some still believe, it hides a second history, one that predates ours, one we were never meant to remember. The hollow earth theory is not just a myth. It is a mirror. It reflects our deepest fears and longings, the fear that we are not alone, and the longing for a world untouched by time. Agartha, in this view, is not just a city beneath the ground. It is a symbol of all that has been buried, by war, by dogma, by progress. Its endurance in global myth is not a coincidence. The stories come from everywhere, from the Andes to the Alps, from Siberia to Shambhala. Cultures that never met tell the same tale, of tunnels, of protectors, of light beneath the stone. Governments may scoff, but they do not ignore. Files are sealed. Expeditions vanish. Anomalies remain unexplained. And over it all, a silence persists. Not denial, not refutation, just absence. We may never find Agartha. It may never be revealed in full, but the idea remains a pressure point in human consciousness, a quiet rebellion against the surface world. Somewhere, in a place no map shows, the vault may still stand, guarded not by armies, but by forgetfulness. Those who enter never return. Those who remember are made to forget. And the rest of us, we wonder, we search, we listen. Because somewhere below us, behind the crust and the myth, something waits. Not to be discovered, but to be believed.